Welcome to Charmed Life, the podcast and YouTube channel all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the love of the universe. I am your host, Tricia Carr. I'm a multidimensional medium and channel. I'm an animal communicator, hypnotherapist, and I am a spiritual teacher. And so welcome if it is your first time. And on this podcast, you will be able to watch and or listen, since we are published both as a video and as a podcast, me teaching and having episodes where I'm teaching on all kinds of topics, personal development, spirituality, and some of the crazier things that we get up to in this podcast about the universal energies, the cosmic energies, and about nature. In this episode, I am talking with Jennifer Longmore. She is an Akashic record reader, expert, and teacher. She's also an author and a business coach for all kinds of enlightened entrepreneurs. She's a sought-after media personality and a 3-time best-selling author. We talk a bit about what's going on with the current energetic climate, what kind of principalities may be concerned with what is happening in our social and even in our political experience. But I will say it's not a political episode at all. But we talk about it from that spiritual standpoint. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you get into this conversation with us, and I will see you on the other side. Jennifer, it's so exciting to have you on the show. You have such a dynamic business, a dynamic spiritual approach, and I've really enjoyed learning all about what it is that you are bringing, what you shine, how you shine your light on this planet, and you're just helping so many people. So thank you for being here. And why don't we just start with getting into your journey, the work that you're doing, wherever you want to start. Let people start to feel. They can already see it if they're watching on YouTube. See that light.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I feel like when I first started my business, I was constantly pinching myself for a few years. Like, am I really doing this? Do I really get to make a living doing this? And now that I've been at this full time for 16 years, I feel an immense honor and privilege to be able to be a part of people's journey in whatever way and be invited to, in an ideal world, at least activate one aha for people. I so appreciate when people do that for me, when I have that moment where I'm like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. And so when I get invited to do that, I'm genuinely honored. So thank you for that. I spent a good chunk of my childhood being a channel and not realizing why I was freaking people out. And I went for my first past life regression with my parents when I was 4, because they wanted to find out why they were brought together as a couple. They met when they were 18 in their last year of high school, and they dated for 6 months and got married, and they're still married to this day.
Oh, chills. I'm like, woo, talk about soulmates, or whatever twin flames. It's like, wow, amazing.
Yeah. And they have their ups and downs for sure. I think.
Oh, they're humans after all.
I don't care how aligned people are, right? You're just going to have your stuff. But they celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary next year. That's just wild to me. I'd imagine spending 50 years with the same person, right?
Oh, and how many different people they've been. You know, if you even think about it, physically speaking, my husband and I just celebrated our 16th year being together, and so we have switched out all of our cells in our body 2 times over. I think of it, sometimes besides of all of obviously the soul activations that we're shifting and bringing in those dispensations. So 50 years, that they've been several different sets of people, but that soul point is just, that intention, and that, whether you want to think of it as destiny, or destiny, I don't usually like that word, but there's something like destiny with a marriage, a partnership like that.
And that's what they figured, because their pull at such a young age, because back then it was actually okay for people to get married and start having kids when they were like 18 to 22 years old. That was kind of a common time. But they had a lot of poo-pooing from the adults in their life that were, of course, still viewing them as children. And I guess rightly so, because we are still adolescents until we're like 28 years old psychologically. But they had such a pull, so they went to this channeling group called the Evergreens, similar to Abraham Hicks. So the person would literally be put into a trance state and channel. So they wanted to find out why they came together as a couple. Then they wanted to find out why the 3 of us came together. And when they were having their session, I would sit at the pool and all these adults, it wasn't a cult at all. It was just more like a commune.
Mm.
And I remember all these adults swimming up to me, patronizing me. Hey, little girl, what do you think the meaning of the universe is? And I would, I guess, just start channeling. So they'd all sort of swim up
Well, you
and
asked.
pick me. Yeah. And I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but because I felt like such an old soul at a young age, anytime people spoke to me in any tone other than just a normal adult human to human tone, I would get this visceral irritation with them.
Mm.
And I wouldn't act it out because I was also taught to have manners. But my son is an old soul, and he always had like detested people talking to him like a little boy.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
just wouldn't give people the time of day. He just would look away, or he'd turn his back to them and just ignore them, which as a parent is an interesting journey, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, so, but I would freak people out, and I didn't know that I knew things that they didn't know. I just spoke very matter of factly. I thought we were just having a conversation. I tended to tap into a lot of future stuff for them. And, and so I spent a good chunk of my childhood, and actually probably some adulthood, figuring out who I needed to be so that people were comfortable around me. And I know a lot of empaths and folks that are in our, woo community feel that way. So I realized I used to feel it was a curse. And then I decided, well, that's not making it go away. Me hating on it, me wishing it would go away, it's not going away. So what would happen if I just leaned into it? What would happen if I just got curious about it? And so I started playing around with crystals and astrology and numerology and
This
attending
is
psychic
this is
fairs. And,
when you were about what age? As a teenager or a young adult or
about
something?
18. Yeah, I was
Uh-huh.
about 17 or 18. And something just snapped. I really couldn't tell you what it is. I kind of just woke up one day and I stopped being angry.
Mm.
You wouldn't have known you were angry if you met me, but I had this gift always hovering over me that felt like such a burden. I just didn't know how to articulate it. And fortunately, I had a really serious car accident when I was 21.
Mm.
And that might sound kind of odd, but I've been shown by the guides that we all build in an exit point in our early 20s, usually around 21, where we get an opportunity. We're faced with something where we're given the opportunity to decide if we're on track and whether we want to stay, whether we want to get on track if we're really off track, or whether we just want to leave and come back again and try it all over again and create, find a different body and find some different parents and so on and recreate it. So when I had the accident, I I remember screaming out loud, "I'm not ready to go." I do remember that. My life flashed before my eyes, as people will say, like I was shown a movie. And and then a series of other events happened throughout that day of me having to just try and get home. I had to drive through the white light, which is a huge snowstorm, snow coming at me so I couldn't see in it, and had to drive over a bridge, and it was almost like a tornado. So the car almost flew over the bridge into the lake and like all this
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
But what it did was, first of all, help me to really tune into my faith. I had nothing going for me in that moment but faith. And I got to really place value on my life and decide, yeah, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to make something of my life. I was already, academically successful and whatever, but I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't have a sense of really sinking my teeth into anything. But anyways, got a lot of Reiki done on me to help with the injuries. And she said to me, well, let's get you studying Reiki. And to me, because I was in university at the time, I thought that meant textbooks and exams and reading and writing papers. So I had this assumption of what it would be. But something in me said, no, you should go. And I did. And within 15 minutes, I said, I'm going to be a Reiki master. And it, when you have frogs jump out of your mouth, like that's what it felt like, because I was like, did I just say that I'm going to become a
Oh
Reiki
yeah, right.
master? I was in my
Who said
early
that?
20s at the time. And I did. I went on to get it. But the gift of that is that the energy gave me, it allowed me to combine the intuition and the energy and give some language to what I'd spent my whole life navigating. And I finally felt like it brought it all together for me. So, but at the time I graduated from university, I went into forensics and I was investigating really crazy crimes against children, cults,
Goodness. Oh gosh.
high profile cases, and it's really challenging. I mean, I guess in some ways it's a gift to be very intuitive and do that for a living, because right? You
Hmm.
just know when people are lying to you, let alone
Sure.
how you get trained to know people are lying to you.
Yeah.
But it's a whole other thing to know someone's lying to you and to actually find physical evidence to appease the court to find
Hmm.
in favor of the victim.
Yeah.
And additionally, to also know what judges were shady, what cops were shady,
Yeah.
what other, the other colleagues I had that were shady, that were misrepresenting things. Most people were good, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
So I loved my clients actually, and I got along really well with my clients. And I learned intuitively how to read their energy and figure out who do I need to be for them so that I can get their buy in and have them work with me rather than triangulate and work against me just to be in a win or lose energy.
Hmm.
And, but I had to leave because the toxic energy, the more you do energy work, as you know, right, the
Yeah.
harder it is to be in environments that are such a dissonance.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I also thought, oh my goodness, I'm living for the weekends. How am I going to
Mm.
spend the next 40 years doing this? I had
Yeah.
such adrenal fatigue and I know anyone who's had adrenal fatigue gets it. Like brushing your teeth feels like the biggest effort in the world, and washing your face before bed and like
Yeah.
getting dressed.
It's the flu
So
without
I'd
the
be so
flu.
exhausted. Yeah, I'd be so
Hmm.
exhausted for the weekends, and I had to basically put on armor all the time to go out. And I thought, I can't, how can I possibly live like this for 40 years? I did not sign up to live just above the line or just below the line as far as money goes, right? Like
Hmm.
if I can barely afford to live right now on a public servant salary and I can't even save,
Yeah.
and I'm like feeling like I'm dying inside, how is that going to be? So I started getting examples of people like me having businesses where they were teaching Reiki or doing intuitive readings, because I didn't even know a business was an option for me. I wasn't
Mm.
raised that way. So I didn't know that entrepreneurship was even an option. But I started being introduced to folks that were doing this, and I started just observing, and I started going to networking events just to see if I could speak this alien language, right? It felt very like, what are you speaking? What planet are you from? Right? It was just not a language I was used to. And when I saw enough people that were able to, sustain a living from doing this, because I never thought I'd make more than, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000 a month, but that would have been all I needed. And I eventually took the leap and trusted the net would catch me, which I think we all inevitably have to do. I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about business. Most people will
Mhm.
say that I don't know anything about business. And I say, isn't that exciting? None of us knew anything about business. Even if we thought we did, we really just didn't know
Yeah.
when we started business. But my passion for helping people was so strong that that actually created a lot of financial success really quickly. And I didn't know what to do with that because I was used to being a public servant. I wasn't
Mm.
used to having financial abundance, and I wasn't doing it for the money. I mean, obviously, I had to make a living, but I truly just focused on the service, and that helped me. So I share that because I think that's a great reminder for all of us in
Yeah.
the service-based industry, right? To when money
Yes.
isn't flowing, it doesn't mean it's a good or a bad thing. It just means it's an opportunity for us to look and say, okay, is there an opportunity for me to deepen into being of service right now? Is there
Absolutely.
a part of me that's a little too attached to meeting a certain monthly income right now? And how can I just show up and serve and add value?
Yes. Yes, that's so important. And because those of us, have you ever studied or read The Law of One, the raw material?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm of course, and I'm studying it now. And that idea of the wanderers, those of us who are, either our channels or meditators or, helping. The whole reason we're here is to be of service, is to serve others. The only reason we came back as a wanderer was to help because it wasn't necessary, really. Not to say we were,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of ascended masters, but we didn't need to come down into this density. We could have gone to another density that was more in alignment. So, right, it's if you are being of service, if you're being fueled by your creativity, and because that's how we connect with that service, that's the way to enhance things. Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a
I,
question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
oh, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to talk about, because I know a lot of people's ears perked up about those exit points, about when you were 21 and you said the guides have
Mm-hmm.
shown you that there are sort of exit points, almost like these checkpoints. And I actually perceived that a while ago. I got that message a while ago at the beginning of my sort of metaphysical opening. And I saw just neutrally 3 of those checkpoints. One had already passed, and mine was my first one that I viewed was at 27. When I checked in about it, it just came neutrally, like 27, 48, and 92. Those were the ages of my checkpoints. And I wasn't even thinking about what the year of 27 was like. But when I went and looked at it, it was, that was a toughie. And I actually did have these conversations. I was so low where mine wasn't an accident. It was a kind of depression. There was situational depression, but it was so intense that I was saying, I think I'm done. I don't want to harm myself, but I think I'm done. And I didn't know. So I was in that range. I'm 46, so we'll see what happens in a couple of years. That second one. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I look forward to
it. Yeah, we will cancel and clear that one.
I know, I'm kidding. I know it could be something really wonderful. I mean, it could also be that I've done so much that maybe I'm like, maybe this is all I have to do. I don't know. I'm totally, and I'm not saying I was 100% accurate, but if I think about it also, not that I'm an astrologer, that was probably right before my Saturn return was about to start too. So there's, kind of entering going from the Saturnian cycle to the Uranian cycle. And maybe that's another reason why I was considering shifting, or that was an exit point that makes sense. So tell us, if you don't mind, as being an Akashic expert, how, if you want to expand on those exit points a little bit. And obviously, we always are framing this in positive. I know I'm saying this to the audience. If you're new to this podcast, we are not talking in doom at all. Anything that is profound is an opportunity. And just as Jennifer was talking about that accident at 21, she said, fortunately, this happened. So I think that's, and then just so as we enter into this, let's talk about exit points, because that's exciting a little bit.
My whole life changed, and thank goodness, because I feel like, I mean, even with the situation we're in now, and believe me, profound. There's human parts of me that I'm like, oh, did I really sign up for this? Like
this, God. Actually, all of the pressures that's going on with this country, at least, and I know there's always crazy catastrophe going on in other areas of the world, but we're here in the northern hemisphere and centered around like the United States. Are you in the US? You're in the US, right?
I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada, but still we're like we're all right here. But it is global. The pandemic is global, and so everything that's going on it feels like that pressure cooker, almost like there's a collective exit point being checked in. Are we going to continue, or are we going to like get out of this? But not in a negative way. It feels like we're on the other side of it, but we're really moving through some dense stuff.
Totally. And that's what I was going to mention, is that we've all been asked to check in and have this existential sort of, I don't know, dance with ourselves, right? And for some people, they have chosen to move on, and they've chosen it in whatever way they've needed to. For some people, they contracted to be a catalyst for change. For some people, they contracted to instigate a movement that was already going to happen. They just happened to be the catalyst for that. There's a lot of different roles that we all play, and in our humanness, we forget that. And I get that that's hard, because we see people experiencing a journey or choosing not to experience a journey that we think they should. And then we judge it, but we're not privy to their blueprint. So we don't know what gifts they're actually giving to us. And additionally, many souls only need to be on this planet, in the density of this planet, for like 10 years. It's really hard for us on a human level to see children die of cancer, for example. But if they only needed to borrow a body for, let's say, 10 years and absorb whatever frequency they came here to absorb, and the lessons and so on, but also be a gift in the ways that they're a gift, then from a spiritual perspective, we can maybe look at it different. I'm not saying it's easy, because the human part of us is going to get involved in that. Right.
Well, and the thing is, the higher self, and how the records are proposed, if not written, there isn't, while there is, again, the human side, as you're saying, there is the reality of the human and third density perspective, that things are painful, and they definitely, losing your child, 100% the experiences felt that it should not happen, honored, compassion, 100%. However, the soul perspective, this higher self wouldn't allow it if it were truly not of benefit. If there wasn't the learning that was happening, if there wasn't transmutation and alchemy happening by all of those circumstances. So sometimes it hurts to see it from that expanded perspective if you're in the depth of grief, but sometimes it actually gives you some relief from that as well, to help you to, and some motivation to move through that process of healing. And so you said, but the way you said that, you said many people only need a body for 10 years. Did you say majority or many?
Well, that's just an example. But,
I know.
we don't, there's a lot of us that don't need a body for like 95 years.
Right.
Sometimes we need to pop in and out. It's not unlike walk-ins where we go into surgery and all of a sudden we become a different person because we've literally decided to donate our body to a different soul to come in and switch places with us, basically, right? And we see that where someone wakes up at a surgery and they don't recognize their family. The clothes in their closet are totally unappealing. Their food choices are different. They've had a walk-in experience. So yeah, there's a lot of, I guess I probably shouldn't have gone there because there's a lot of complexity to that. But with the exit points, we usually have 3 exit points. For some people, they choose it very young, but the average is in the early 20s and then early 50s. We hear a lot of that. He was so healthy. He used to cycle all the time. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. And he just, had a heart attack and died. And we don't understand that either they feel complete at that time or they really feel like they're off track from their last exit point.
Right.
So, and then, we have our final exit point. And I know a lot of people are feeling nervous right now. And what I can say, just from what I've been channeling from the records, and a few different groups of beings have come in, the Arcturians come in a lot. They actually oversee the records, which I just found recently. I didn't even know that. And I've been doing this work for a long time.
Amazing.
Is that also created?
They always have been, or is it like they have started? Is it in our time space continuum
in our
perspective?
Time and space. Yeah.
So
I mean, the records are overseen by very, very high councils of light.
Yeah.
But within the hierarchy, I guess I'll call it, of light, the Arcturians are really overseeing a lot of the Akashic for planet Earth.
Fascinating. Okay.
And the inhabitants of planet Earth. So within that, what I've come to learn from them is that, and I'm going to talk in code because I recognize that the censorship bots are pretty happy in different spaces. Oh, really?
I have never been censored. I mean, I guess the only time I've been censored on YouTube is if it had I actually said something about my father's death and they censored me for that. And I'm like, but that's not aggressive. My father passed away. That's like, that happens anyway. Yeah. So I haven't been censored, but do whatever you're comfortable with or whatever you think is wisest.
I only say this because there's certain keywords that I know are, so there's some towers that are concerning to people going up.
Yeah.
And the guides have been very clear with me. So the Arcturians created the human race. And we have gone through many ages. And so they have helped our bodies adapt on a cellular level. And they are continuing to work on our bodies right now for those of us that are choosing the new paradigm as a timeline, meaning the 5D timeline, which is really just the timeline for the new Earth and what that's going to look like and the new structure and infrastructure and so on. So they've been very clear with me that whether it be anything that's injected into the body, whether it be anything that, any towers that might impact our body, that we don't need to be concerned because our body, our DNA, RNA structure is being calibrated to match the timeline that we're choosing to be on. So if we're going to choose wonderful timeline, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
There's so much to say. Oh my goodness, there's so much information coming through right now. So I'm not saying that it's not legitimate to be concerned and to be concerned with some of the agendas that are running, but we need to trust that our bodies historically throughout the test of time have adapted to match whatever's going on environmentally.
Yes.
So when we were hunters and gatherers, we were tiny. We were like 4 feet tall. and now, our society has changed, our bodies have evolved, Even if you look at some of the interference that we've had, and really any of the health issues we have are because of the things we have been conditioned to believe we need to put into our body. If we didn't have any interference to boost our immune systems, right, then we actually wouldn't have the conditions that we have on the planet for the most part. But we don't need to worry about that. They're taking care of that. There's a lot of angels on the planet.
Mm.
The other thing I hear a lot from light workers is that they don't understand why everyone's not waking up. How come there's light workers that are not waking up and they just think this is an oopsie doopsie? And I even wondered that. So I asked the guides, and this will probably give people chills when they hear this, because what they said was, not all light workers are meant to come with us. They were here to lay the light grids. They aren't necessarily here to activate and sort of expand the light grids. So we actually can have gratitude for them. If they're not waking up the way we think they need to wake up, it's because they've played their part.
And maybe they're anchoring, but they're not necessarily demonstrating or doing the action that we expect. And so maybe they're more anchors than, okay. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, even if we look at people like Shirley MacLaine and Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, like they paved the way for us to be having these conversations in a much more mainstream environment than we were able to have before.
Yeah.
And it would have taken a lot of courage because they would have looked like total crazy pants.
Right.
You can already imagine how
Shirley MacLaine
even to
was
this
called.
day, I get that there's still a lot of people that don't get what we do, but the consciousness has shifted to allow these conversations to be more open. It's because of the work that they, the foundation that they laid for us. And so the same is true for the light grid, that the very tall whites, meaning like these very big angels, are definitely on the planet. There's a lot of protection. They've told me that for every one person that we channel light to, it gives them permission to expand it times 1,000 people. So even us kind of spreading light on the show right now, depending on how many people are listening, that's times 1,000.
Love that.
That's
yes,
really cool.
That is. And the way that I had the, consciousness project kind of phenomenon, it's not even phenomenon, but it is in a sense, had that explained to me. It's when two people come to, and the Bible says where two or more are gathered in God's name, there God is. But when two people come together in the interest of love, service, connection, and that bond that they create, that is a third energy, and that one is exponential in that itself. So it's the love that we both have, and then the love that we create is the one that expands exponentially more than just the 2 or the 5 or the 7 or whatever it is. So I love that 1,000. So would that be if there were, maybe I'm being too literal. If there were 10 of us gathering and we channeled light, then it would somehow be 10,000 or something along those lines even? I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So channeling light for sure is really effective right now. I also want to just say that there's some folks, we think that channeling light is enough. And there are just certain things right now that are requiring us to also take action. And we are dismantling an entire system. Our entire system was based in illusion. Not our love for each other, not our appreciation of animals, not our understanding of nature and things like that. But our systems were all created in illusion. And that is a hard pill to swallow when you realize that your understanding of your reality is very different than what you thought it was. And it's also oddly liberating, because then we get to be the observer and we get to say, okay, like I've been saying a lot, because the guides have told me we need to get out of a holding pattern. There's certain agendas that are trying to keep us in a holding pattern. They're sending us frequencies to make us feel futile, to make us feel what's the point, to have us give up on our businesses, to feel like it's the end of the world. And it is the end of the world. It is the end of the world metaphorically. We cannot bring these frequencies. We cannot bring race. Well, by race, I mean racism.
Sure.
We cannot bring that. We can't really bring any isms into the new paradigm. And astrologically, the influences are commanding that right now. Like that all the conversations right now that are happening around race, they're not going to go away, because astrologically, even, and it's good that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And even if people wanted to put their head in the sand, they're not going to be able to, because the force field astrologically right now is so strong to be dismantling any systems of oppression and toxicity, that we really need to understand that we're in a marathon, we're not in a sprint.
Yes.
A lot of people are still waiting to get the news that this is going to be over. Oh, next week we'll be able to go back to normal. It's like there's no going back. Right. We're just not going back. We are in the middle of the last leg of the new paradigm. In fact, we're just in the first inning, if you want to look at it that way. There's 8 more innings to go. Like, this is a marathon. This goes until 2023, and then we head into another cycle of extracting ourselves from the shadow of technology after that.
Oh, that's so great.
You know,
that is
so
something.
There's a lot of, we're in about a 7-year cycle of a lot of dismantling,
yes.
revolution, reorganization, rebuilding. So it's not for the faint of heart. I get it, because there's times where I'm like, oh, did I
but we're
sign
supported.
Up for this? What was I thinking?
But you did, and we are supported in it. So I love that message from the Arcturians that, while yes, we do the work of shining the truth and taking the actions against the systems that are, you know, creating the chaos and the suffering and the obstruction, and that we are also equipped, we're also being supported in that. So while yes, it's true that certain implements are being placed here to interrupt our physical bodies and our mind, body, spirit complexes, and yet we are also channeling, as we channel, we are channeling the downloads that will shift our bodies in order to be able to, you know, I guess, for lack of a better word, combat it and to empower us, fortify. I love the word fortify over the word protect. It just makes me feel better about it. And, you know, I have been receiving lots of information around the technology piece. And so far as how technology is actually, the more we push, the more technology pushes, it's really just going to break into the intuition age even more, because all of the technology we have is something, first of all, it's kind of funny that it's that somehow the illusion is obscuring from, I guess, the common mind, the common collective mind, that we actually, the technology is a product of us. Like, we created it, so we can do it, what it does, without the machines of it. So we, as you and I clearly know, can telepathically connect. We can teleport. We can do all of the things that the technology is giving us the facility to do. And it's reminding us of that. And so at some point the bow will break and we'll have to move into something that is more along the lines of Atlantean, or, you know, bringing back the technology that is natural to us without the interruption. But technology also, we have to be the master of it again and let it be the servant. And you're saying we have, 2023 is about that mark where there's going to be a shift in that perspective?
From now, so we're mid 2020 to the end of, and I've interviewed a lot of astrologers, so I'm not an astrologer, but I have a memory like an elephant, so I store information pretty well.
Great.
Just to be clear with people, because there's still a lot to learn, and I have great astrologers if people need to know who they are. So until 2023, till the end of 2020, we're going to be in a pretty intense energy of revolution and rebellion and whatever other words people want to use that begin with R, right? And then it'll settle a little bit, but we're going to still be in this dust settling mode. Like, what's happening? Where are we? What are we creating? Because there's going to be a lot of voids where systems used to be, but new systems haven't been created. We're really in a massive law of cycles moment, right? Where the boot has stomped on the end of something, and then we rise. Now, historically, you know, when statues get torn down and history gets eliminated and rewritten, and, you know, there's agendas at play to reorganize society again, it actually is a very profitable time. A lot of millionaires and billionaires are born during this time. And a lot of physical rebuilding happens as a metaphor for rebuilding society and rebuilding hope and so on. So if we look at some of the bridges that were built and statues and stuff, it was done during times like this. Now, I know we've never really had a time like this during our waking years, but there's a lot of good that will come out of it. But in this straddling period of literally having one foot still stuck in an ending and not knowing what to do with it, and then another foot in the new beginning, that straddling on the teeter-totter is very wobbly because our foundation is so wobbly. It's like standing on a Bosu ball for 24/7, right? It's like, ooh, I can do it, but oh. So anyways, our job right now is to look at our own shadow and our shadows of persecutor, rescuer, victim, to look at anywhere that we have to heal oppressing others, anywhere that we have to look at being oppressed, extracting ourselves from any slavery, colonization blueprints from this lifetime or any other lifetime. One of my clients, actually, she does what's called star activations, and she downloads these mandalas from, well, the galaxy, Pleiadian, Syrian folks. And I looked at them, my eyes went cross-eyed when she gave me these slavery templates to look at. You just literally look at them like mandalas, and we're going to do a webinar on it because they're so powerful. I just feel like it's going to accelerate everyone so much to just look at something, to have it do the transmutation and move through it, rather than trying to find words for something that we don't have words for. Anyways, that's what our responsibility is. But our other responsibility is to protect our third eye and our light body, because that's what they're coming for. And I don't mean that in a doom and gloom way. I'm going to share something that will probably give people chills again, just simply because when I share it, I haven't even shared this with my own groups yet, but we hear this saying a lot: we're in this together. We're in this together. Stay at home. We're in this together. We're going to get through this together. We're going to beat COVID together. Well, if we know that these agendas, I'll call them, speak in, they do things in plain sight, but they still kind of speak in code. And then they figure, well, it's up to you guys to decode it. We told you what we're doing. When you break it down, together is to get her. We're in this to get her.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love it because language is just, it's just myth. It's just symbols. It is an interpretation of the subconscious mind, and we all actually know it. We know what we're saying when we say those things. I just talked to my husband about this yesterday. The words that are, when they become antiquated, even before they become antiquated, when they were derived in something else, we still know it by the collective, connection. Like the word hysteria or hysterical is about being crazy like a woman. You know what I mean? Like the hysteria that has to do with the uterus. And you're talking about it in a different way, in that it's not like it derived from a root in that sense, but it's there. And our mind reads it. Our mind reads all of that. Our subconscious mind reads that. Oh my gosh, thank you. This is fascinating. Keep going.
So I really want to encourage people to take that in and understand what's happening, because there's going to be some other agendas that support what I'm about to share. And it's going to sound really crazy to some folks, but it honestly is something that's coming. So,
and are we talking about the Orion group, or are we talking about something expanded, inclusive of that, or beyond, or do we not want to name it?
Well, I'm just talking about the dark forces on the planet. Right?
The principalities, yeah.
Yeah, and the light brought the dark to light, right? We brought all this stuff to light. We forgot that as light workers, that we have to illuminate what's hiding, and we have to illuminate what's in the dark. And we've always known that there's groups. We hear about these groups on the planet that have an agenda and are puppeting us and playing this chess game. And we've heard stories about, the kind of nonsense that happens with the television and the patents and, all the things, right? I don't want to go too far down that path, simply because it's such a long history. We just won't have time for it. But all that to say that we know that there are some dark force agendas that are coming for our consciousness. That's what it means when they're saying to us constantly through the MSM, we are coming to get her, which means we're coming to get your consciousness. We're coming to get your religion. We're coming to get your spirituality. We have known we're in a spiritual war. And I hate to use the word war because it's just not part of my vocabulary. But that, we're in an information war. They're trying to hijack our limbic system by constantly sending us mixed information on social media, especially. That's been happening for several years. And then we we are in essentially a civil war, I guess we'll call it, right? Like it's a necessary part of it, but I am seeing where there's instigation of things beyond what we're really just trying to dismantle. And then we're in this spiritual war. And I think even the churches and other religious institutions realize that right from the get-go, that there seemed to be an attack on the system, and a real prevention of us. Because if we're awake and we know what's going on, we're a great threat to their system, because then we see what's going on, we don't participate in it, and we have the power to wake more people up. Vibrationally, we're stronger. As 3D, 4D, 5D beings, we're already vibrationally more powerful than the 2D realm that they live in. And so we are already more potent. And we, if we're not going to play their game, then, they have to find a way to get at us. They've been, calcifying our pineal gland by putting fluoride in the water and in our toothpaste. And so that's a little tip, by the way, that comes through the guides, that we need to do our part to decalcify our pineal gland. And in doing that, that's actually where we have the great awakening, because if it's not calcified, we're going to see stuff.
Right.
That's actually my way around it right now, is posting more about the healing the pineal gland than actually posting things that are in people's face, because there's so much cognitive dissonance that if I can help them, peel off that calcification, then they'll see, the truth is better revealed than it is told, right? So if I can help them remove the barriers to them seeing the truth, that's actually more, I think, helpful to them than just telling them, here's these bad people, here's what they're doing, and you need to
just
stop
creating
believing
fear.
what you believe.
And it's not about fear, it's about empowerment. It's about moving into the empowerment, but waking up to a truth. Yeah. I was going to ask for some tips, or when you say we need to protect our pineal, we need to protect our third eye and our light body. And it's, you get better water. The tap water has fluoride in it. And honestly, just for that practical tip, I have been using baking soda. I put a little bit of essential oil in it, and that's it. That's all you need. And my dentist says, you should patent your toothpaste. I'm like, it's baking soda. I can't patent baking soda, but it is all you need. You don't need the product. I mean, sure, there's the Toms of Maine, and there are non-fluoridated toothpaste that you can buy as products, but that's really all you need. It's really simple. What else for protecting the third eye and the light body? Channeling the light,
I love
clearly.
that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, if we can really be mindful of avoiding putting fluoride in our body, and then any sort of, I can't think of the name of it, but like NutraSweet and those kind of things, aspartame. Yeah, so we want to avoid that. And then to help decalcify it, it's interesting, hydrochloroquine is rumored to be this medicine that does this. And I think it's interesting that a certain someone really made it a well-known.
But it was just, like yesterday or day before, then it was actually, I heard, on the news that it was then discredited as being helpful to the COVID issue.
Yeah, they've stopped a lot of trials. Without getting too far down the rabbit hole, because I'm from Canada, our prime minister is on house arrest, which isn't making mainstream media. We call him the prime minister. And he was involved in the Sherman murders. Now, the Shermans were a couple that owned a pharmaceutical company up here. They had a $1 billion company, and they were murdered and posed in their house in a weird way. And they were creating hydrochloroquine. This was a few years ago. So
interesting.
Kind of interesting.
And wait, so the implication of hydrochloroquine, then you're saying that it would actually help to decalcify the pineal gland, or it would actually calcify?
That's what they're, I'm obviously not a scientist. I'm just going on what I've read from various things I've studied, because I know some people get upset if you're talking about science and it's not, that's not your background. So I'm by no means an epidemiologist. This is just information I get, and then I check it with the records to find out if it's actually true. Because there's some things I'll think are true, and then I check them with the records and find out that they're not. But when we have a calcified pineal gland, it interrupts our hormones. So we can have a lot of hormone-related issues, thyroid issues and stuff. Definitely something to look out for Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. and also even digestive issues. So it actually has a big effect on the body. Uh, it's and so it's interesting that they want to come for that, right? They want to keep that suppressed because that's all they can do is keep us in fear and keep that particular part of our physiology suppressed and depressed.
I actually this came from a nature. It came from like a gnome deva, and asking me to spread some information and about the kind of simple things that we should avoid. Obviously, fluoride, it's like one of those. And I have a kind of short list. I think I actually did talk about it on a podcast fully because I would mention it every now and again, and listeners would be like, please write a blog, please make the list. So if I remember which one that is, I'll link it here. But one thing that was kind of like really at the top, at least for that download that I got that day, was sodas, like soda pop, not obviously like La Croix or something that's just whatever, or not seltzers, but the sodas from the Coke and Pepsi companies and a lot of them had the aspartame and God knows, I mean, high fructose corn syrup, but they were talking about it's not just those chemicals, it's also the composition of it and the way it's put together, that it creates an addiction on I don't know, profound multidimensional level. And it's an entraining, and it really subjugates. And we know how people will drink like 20 a day. They can be so addicted to it, but it does some kind of profound stifling, and nothing less, the least of which is certainly not the calcification of the pineal gland, but it does something even more profoundly. They even show me that it like kind of puts this, like matrix, and it's like compressing and suppressing people and putting them, I'm going to say them because I don't drink it, into a grid, a slavery kind of grid, and almost like, just like roboticized and dehumanized. And when I got that download, I was like, for realsies though? I mean, are you sure it's not something else? Because I don't drink soda. So it was almost like, wait, is that just easy for me to receive because it's not a problem for me at all? I mean, tell me the truth. It's the Chardonnay that I drank last night, right? I mean, give me the for reals. But it's come through many different times. And then other things like, what's going on with the genetic modification organisms and other insidious things, like weirdly, tomatoes that are raised in Florida, which are really prolific across this country, are highly poisonous to us because they're raised in sand. The people who are cultivating them are dying. It's ridiculous, and it's just not necessary. So, in addition to some of those things, protecting the light body. I mean, I'm sure it's also channeling light, right? And what are some other ways? What have the records told you about it, I guess, maybe, or the Arcturians, or all of it?
So for the pineal gland, I can give you a few, but there's actually
Sure.
a lot of great articles, and it sounds like you've got that too. So Hawaiian spirulina is a great decalcifier, raw cacao, which I love.
Me too.
Zeolite, which it comes in drop form, and I don't have any taste to it, so that's
Cool.
good. And what else? Oh, iodine is another good one. And then
And just
there's even
as a
some
supplement?
yoga poses you can do, and
That's great.
what I do every night before bed, and this is something that's come through the record keeper, so I'll share this because I like simple things. I like things that I like to be efficient. That's just me. So every night before I go to bed, I ask Archangel Michael to come in and clear any residue out of my field. And he understands what I mean by residue, because it can be just information I've picked up on social media that I didn't realize that's kind of stuck to me. It can be a frequency that stuck to me. It can be an intention that someone projected onto me. It can be anything. And then I ask the Arcturians to come in and upgrade my DNA RNA. This is why people are nervous about the towers, I'm going to call it that, and the injections, because it's meant to tamper with our RNA. And our RNA is the communicator to tell our DNA what to do. So our RNA, is essentially telling our liver it's time to detoxify. And if it's not telling the liver that, then what happens? It's telling our kidneys to detoxify, on and on and on. So So the things that the rumor is that these things that are being created are going to tamper with our RNA, and that's what's going to make us sick, and that's what's going to create problems. So we want to, first of all, if we choose the 5D timeline, we don't have to worry about it, not because I'm being a Pollyanna, but because we're choosing to stay. And so naturally, we're going to be upgraded on all levels, our frequency, our physiology, and so on. But we can invite them in because of the universal law of free will. They can only work with us to the degree that we intend to allow them in. So if we give them full permission, they can come in and upgrade our DNA, RNA every night. And that can be really helpful because then it's just kind of happening while we're sleeping. And I certainly notice, when that's happening. And then what my guides will do is they'll put me almost in like a dome that allows me to sleep. So it's like a dome of, I'll call it fortitude. So I like that. That's a cool way of putting it. And that way, because I have people that they don't mean to, but they want to come and visit me for a reading. I have people that, there's just a lot of it is well intended, but sort of misplaced energy. And so it allows me to get my proper sleep. It allows me to get my downloads that I need. Yeah. It's spacious enough for my aura to expand while I'm sleeping. And then when I wake up, it's almost like they zipper it open. And then I'm able to step out of it. Like every day I'm stepping out of a cocoon.
Wait,
so do you have
really well? Do you have a partner, or do you sleep with anyone? And I'm just curious about
yeah.
And so is it just you in the dome, or do you have your partner or anybody else in there as well?
Okay.
Just curious. Like one reason I'm curious is because, human design. Have you looked into human design? Yeah. And pretty much Ra'uruhu, pretty much for all of the types, he says, I think maybe except for manifestors, that it's better to sleep alone or outside of others' auras, essentially. And so that's what made me curious about the dome.
Yeah, I'm a manifestor, so I guess it's
probably okay. That's interesting.
I sleep better with him in the bed, actually. We have very different beliefs. Like it's been interesting through this because
isn't that so common? All of my colleagues like this, and their partner's like, yeah, he's skeptical and whatever, or whatever. My husband's not skeptical, but kind of different, just different orientations. And it's such a great balance because he's then very curious. Anything that I'm saying, he's like, well, what does that look like? What is, so common, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah. We are best friends. I know he's my life partner. It is interesting for sure. I definitely have a strength in my convictions. There's a lot of things I'm not willing to, throw myself on the sword for, but there are certain things that are happening right now in the world that I'm just not okay with. And it's clear that I was here for the Great Awakening. I don't mean that I'm great. It's just that it's clear that I'm very clear on what my role is. So I'm just not going to tolerate any interference with humanity. It gets under my skin like I can't even articulate. I'm so much in my solar feminine energy around, not my planet, not my people sort of vibe, not from a place of I'm above everyone, but just like locking arms with everyone.
That's so manifestor of you too. Tiger. It's so manifestor of you too.
Like not putting up with any nonsense.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Sure. Yeah.
So, but he's very grounded and he's an Aquarius. So
my husband's an Aquarian too.
He's able to step into that worldview,
Yes.
But yeah, he's not in the dome, interestingly, but we have years ago, I did a violet cloaking. And so that just makes us invisible to the energies that are not of the purest and highest light. So our home is surrounded with that, our vehicles, the inside and outside of our home, wherever we go.
I have a dome over my home. And it's interesting because sometimes I would come out in the morning and to get in my car, and I'll kind of peep it with my third eye, and it's almost like it's like you remember that old Marshall's commercial where the woman's leaning against the window going open, open, open. They're like leaning against the dome around my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband's an Aquarius too. That's interesting. I'm a reflector too. Wow. So, okay. The way you run your energy is so fascinating. Or the way your energy runs even so fascinating to me because, I'm kind of the opposite. I just love it.
I'm like an Energizer bunny. I kind of, there's times where I just wish that I could take a breather, but anytime I
Yeah.
take a breather, it's like vibrationally
Get up
something
again.
just makes me be jumpy again. So
Mm-hmm.
I just harness it. And even in my astrological chart, I've got a pyramid and then I've got a battery inside my pyramid. So when I had that
Wow.
chart read by someone, she's like, you create a lot of stuff. I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
She said, people probably ask you why you have so much energy. And I said, yeah. She said, it's because you literally built a battery into your chart. So you have an
Cool.
endless supply of energy, which was cool because then I wasn't making myself wrong anymore. Right.
Yeah.
But
And mine's the opposite.
yeah.
When I learned that I have no energy, I'm a non-energy type. And I was like, oh, then I'm not making myself wrong then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how we do that, isn't it? Should
Yes.
be interesting to see what this whole awakening brings up for us
Mm-hmm.
and what we decide truly matters to us and how we view ourselves and how we view others. And
Yeah.
I had my chart read recently, very recently, because although I'm clear on what my purpose is, I also can create like crazy.
Sure.
And I don't have a lot of bandwidth right now because I have actually way more clients than I'm used to having. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are really wanting to know what their purpose is
Mm-hmm.
and how to express it in the world. So I consulted one of my very long time students actually and said, okay, I need to know what's going on in the global chart. How does this tie in with my personal chart? What parts of my personal chart am I not seeing? Like, where do I need to really, I want to maximize every single ounce of my purpose. I want to
Mm-hmm.
pour every single part of me into helping this world transition. So what do I need to know? And that was really helpful because I'm going to be downloading the new prosperity codes for the planet. How we're going to
Mm.
be, because capitalism will be one of the things that gets dismantled.
Yeah.
So how are we going to be exchanging energy? What is our currency going to be? And what are
Mm-hmm.
the principles, more importantly, of that currency? Because the old principles clearly don't work. They worked at one point,
Yeah.
but we've outgrown them. We're
Yes.
transitioning through them. So that was pretty cool to hear because that gives me focus so that anything I'm creating is really about elevating wealth consciousness for people and helping people get in right relationship with currency and whatever that new currency is going to look like. But really sinking my teeth into light workers and helping them stay out of their own way as they're expanding their business. That's what I do, why I do what I
Oh
do in the
gosh.
business realm, because
Yeah.
it's not about the business. It's about understanding that that's just a vehicle of expression for someone's purpose. And if they're unknowingly stuck in their own stuff, which I get stuck in my own stuff too,
Sure.
then they're putting themselves out there, but it's about, taking that to the next level. So that's going to be a fun journey.
That's amazing. Well, you have illuminated us too so much, and I love it. It's and again in such an empowered way because we are here. The positively charged energy is that which creates, and so it's really not that hard. Even though it's work, it's not hard to be able to love the work, and that's what we need to do right now. Because, like you said, we're in the first inning. So come present, love the
Mhm.
work. You did this. Align. And I just thank you for all of that. Really powerful. You do one-on-one readings of the Akashic records and you do one-on-one services?
No,
You're
I
not
don't
doing
do
that,
readings anymore.
but you have
I
tons of
have a
people
lot of people that I've trained to do
that have
them. If
trained.
people
Yeah.
have readings with me, it's in the container of like a 12-month,
Got it.
business
Yes.
program. But I
Perfect.
do
Yeah.
have Akashic record training, and I know we were going to talk about that today, but I
Oh,
do
that's
have a free gift where it actually goes into what are the records and how do you
oh,
access them. Some people want to go, and
wonderful.
it is valuable to go to someone else because we're
Hmm.
just too close to our own stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
and we can doubt the information we're getting. So
Hmm.
I always like to empower people and say, here's how you can read your own records. But if you still feel a little nervous, either step into this program with me or,
Hmm.
go have a reading with someone. And then additionally, we have the 9 most powerful questions to deepen into your purpose. So that's all part of that free
That's
gift on my
great.
website.
Okay, so
But
we have the link for that free gift in this description. So definitely everyone go and grab that. Thank you. So gracious of you.
yeah.
And I agree.
So
It's good to have tools so that you have your regular because we need to be doing our own knowing ourselves, knowing our souls, knowing our minds daily. But it's also good to be in either a course or get a reading because then the activation therein of the leader or the teacher or the reader, they're holding a certain light, a certain kind of path, and you then the law of resonance allows us to expand in that 1,000 times over, right? So all of it is, I think the regular maintenance, getting the tools yourself so that you are independent and able to do it daily in every single diurnal. And then also you have the courses, and you have a lot of readers that you have trained as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
I have done over 30,000 readings. And so there comes a point, and we all go through this, where we put in a certain amount of hours into something. Yes. And then there's almost like an energy of completion. So
you own it completely. Yeah.
Read in the record. I do that with all my one-to-one clients. But when I started my business, I worked with anyone. I had people from the mafia. I had blackjack dealers. I had police officers. I had Disney execs. I had Young and the Restless actresses. I had like everyone coming. And I realized that, there's folks that are just curious. I just want to take it for a test drive, and that's okay. I'm just not that person anymore.
Yeah.
I really like to work with people that are recognizing the value of stepping into a sacred container for a period of time and really focusing on evolution and ascension and so on. So, like I said, I do work one-on-one. It's just different now. Yeah. And but there's not unlike when I first learned Reiki, I was just happy to do Reiki on anyone, just the same as the people that I train in the Akashic records. They're just like, I'll read anyone. I love this. Yeah. This is great. But they too will get to a point where, they just change their relationship with what they're working with.
Right. I am in a very similar place where I'm really completing the one-on-one. I have a little bit of that with some ongoing, but it's more about teaching, and it's about groups, and that's actually just how my energy runs naturally. I've always been running that way, sampling the collective and then reflecting that back. So I work more that way. But there's so much value, just like you say, when you're starting and you have these modalities, and the ones that you start one-on-one, and you do a lot of it. So you develop the skill and you develop that. So that's a highly valuable part of the process as well. You kind of, like you said, this completion where you just own all of it. And then you move on to something else. And that's great. And 30,000 is a lot. I don't even, you manifester, 30,000, my goodness.
I know. I was ridiculous. In the beginning of my business, I honestly worked 12 to 16 hours a day. Now, it didn't feel like work, but I did get ridiculous because I was so excited to do it that I really didn't pay attention to putting in lunch breaks and dinner breaks and stuff. And then I was trying to accommodate all these different time zones, and I was still in a servitude energy. So people would say, well, I'm not free until 10 p.m. Pacific time, and I was on Eastern time. So that meant I was doing readings at 1 o'clock in the morning, and, just silly stuff. Right.
That's amazing.
So I've outgrown that. And yeah, it's funny how back in the day I could do, up to like 15, 16 readings a day, and I would do that 7 days a week. And then over the years, I really liked to keep my days to 4 to 5 appointments, 3 days a week. And that's good for me because I'm creating so many other things.
Yeah. And your energy just starts to shift. Like it just starts to change. Yeah. You start signaling differently, and that's all great. Well, so we have your free gifts in the description. There are courses. Is there any course or anything you want to point out particularly that folks, because I know they're super excited. You have your business courses, anything that people would be.
Well, I have a few different masterminds. I think it's great if people connect with me and want to just apply for a call. I actually prefer to customize things for people. I have containers, obviously, but I like to talk to people, and because my filter is I like to be useful for people. I'm not a coach that just takes people's money because it's just about filling another spot. I genuinely want to make sure that what I have to offer is matching what that person wants to create. And so I do have a big buffet of things, but I also, again, want to make sure that whoever is stepping into a container with me feels really good about what they're stepping into and feels like it truly is going to help them. So I do have some masterminds for light workers, and I'll be launching this mastermind I told you about for the prosperity codes, right? Because it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
In transitioning us. And then I have the Akashic record trainings. So it's probably best for people to just reach out and apply for a call, and then that way, I can point them in the right direction.
Well, that's wonderful. So all of the links, the links to our website and the free gift are in the description. And thank you. So generous, so much information, and more than information, I should say, activations that you brought to us today. So I really appreciate you're so generous and such a light. So Jennifer Longmore, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Jennifer, she has worked with over 30,000 people in what she calls her soul purpose sessions. And that includes actors, athletes, CEOs, and all kinds of people that are really committed to shining their light. And that means you, and that means me. And so check down in the description, you'll find all of Jennifer's links, and check her out, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will be out shortly, whenever it is that you are listening to this. And if you're listening to this at some time outside of its actual broadcast, I thank you for going back into it. And if you're listening to it live, we have over 300 episodes, so go check it out. And with that, I will tell you that I appreciate you so much. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.